Sometimes called the swamp fever capital of Tamriel, the warm and muggy city of Seyda Neen is the first sight that greets many a visitor to the lands of Vvardenfell. Bog-ridden and damp, Seyda Neen is hardly what one might consider as a first choice to make their home. But there is an undeniable charm about this fabled city, this gateway to Vvardenfell, that, even after 22 years, continues to draw new residents. And with those new residents comes an assortment of new abodes, from richly adorned estates to little shack-based dwellings, to private island abodes, from more run-down properties to the very essence of class and elegance. Seyda Neen has a surprising array of accommodations for those who, unlike the poor Vodunius Nucius, are looking to stay and make the swamp fever capital their home. Today we'll be taking a look at 5 of those player homes, in a variety of styles, mostly around Seyda Neen, as we try and find the best player home for your character. We'll specifically be showing off newer and more recent player homes, and as always, you can find links for each and every one of them just right down below, along with timestamps and a link to our graphics mod list. We'll start things off with perhaps the largest estate in today's lineup. For at first, going to head out to the southeastern shores of the Bay of Seyda Neen and our first player home, the majestic Tarhiel's Tower by Valhalla. A gorgeous and sizable manor on the otherwise damp and boggy shorelines of the Bitter Coast, Tarhiel's Tower is a unique blend of Imperial and Telvanni architecture, providing a curious hybrid abode that seems particularly intended for those so magically inclined characters. It comes with a Telvanni-style dock, including a skiff that can take you back to Seyda Neen, a mushroom-encrusted tower, a main abode overgrown with moss and mushrooms, with a scenic upper-level balcony providing some potentially lovely views of Seyda Neen. Though, if you have Grot Morrowind swamp trees installed, that view might be just a tad obscured. And the rest of the property includes a drinking well for drawing water, some small gardens, and an overall abundance of atmospheric charm. Now, this is technically a free player home. To acquire it, all you need to do is retrieve the key from Tarhiel's corpse. Though, as a note, you may need to restart the game for the key to, actually show up on his person. Or, you could just break in, that's always an option. Either way, going inside, you'll find a truly lavish abode, dripping in detail, oozing charm from every chamber, with an exuberant sense of coziness to make you feel just right at home. And there are just quite a few chambers here for you to find. These chambers include a small entry hall, a kitchen and bar room, a dining room, a display hall and storage chamber, a lounge, a magical study and alchemy lab, a storage tower, and of course a master bedroom. Starting with the ground floor, you'll enter into a small entry hall, complete with a few shelves for you to use, and this opens right up into the dining room and kitchen. A gorgeously beautiful set of chambers that includes a hearth for cooking, a bar for serving or preparing meals, a sink, a side hutch for dinnerware, racks with an assortment of drinks, a dining room table with a roaring fireplace to keep you warm, and just lots of lovely furnishings for good measure. It is a charmingly exquisite and cozy entry that leads up to the second floor, where you'll find another spaciously open floor plan, including a delightful little lounge composed of piles of cushions gathered around a roaring fireplace, with a desk in the corner for when you need to do just a bit of composition. But the majority of the floor space here is dedicated to a sizable display hall, with bookshelves and tables to show off your loot and collected treasures. And alongside, you'll find some hefty chests, where you can store any excess items that you have on hand. And these chests have a carrying capacity of 50,000 pounds, so you're not likely to run out of space anytime soon. Also on the second floor is the master bedroom, a fairly large and a quite comfy looking space with a queen-size bed, a private little desk and a closet. Some lovely potted flowers add in just a bit of life to these chambers, and a small little alcove window to let in some natural daylight. As part of the Talvani extension to this otherwise Imperial-style abode, you can also find the alchemy lab and study on the second floor, with some more potted plants, yet another desk, a few chests and lecterns, but notably, no actual alchemical equipment. You'll have to provide your own. Finally, the second floor has a hallway that connects the central part of this dwelling to the namesake tower, a rather atmospheric passageway that leads into a storage room, and a staircase leading up to the final room in this abode, a magic platform that provides quick travel to the Balmora Mages Guild. Overall, this is just an incredibly lovely and charming villa by the sea, a player home with a vast array of amenities to suit nearly your every need, including a short commute to Seyda Neen and connections to the Mages Guild fast travel service. It is a free player home, and on the technical side of things, it does have a few visual bugs, like Z-fighting, on account of being built without grid snap. But you'll find few homes more cozy and welcoming than this one, and it is an excellent choice for those just arriving upon the shores of Vvardenfell. But going on to our next abode, we're moving just one bog over to our next player home, right next door to Tarhiel's tower, the colourfully atmospheric Draggle-Tail Shack by Kocha Corel. A small two-story shack in the middle of a swamp, Draggle-Tail has none of the lavish elegance of Tarhiel's tower. But it is, nonetheless, an incredibly scenic, atmospheric, and yes, cozy abode that perfectly matches with, and indeed enhances, the rugged beauty of the Bitter Coast. For, while some may not see living in a swamp as being, the most desirable place to call home, the rustic charm of Draggle-Tail Shack does have a bit of a homely vibe about it that is undeniably appealing. The property comes with a wraparound deck, lots of lovely coda flowers, a dock out back where one can fish amongst the various shipwrecks that have washed up on shore, and there's even an upper level balcony with a hammock for you to sleep in and a table for you to take your meals, surrounded by just some truly amazing and scenic views. To acquire this property, you can buy it from the previous owner for a mere 1,500 gold, though you'll also find a short quest is involved, and also just a wee bit of fighting. But once that's over and done with, you'll be the proud owner of Draggle-Tail Shack, an abode that includes an entry hall, a storage room, a cooking pit that acts as a kitchen, a rider's nook, a charming little lounge, and a bedroom. Of course, as with most shacks, those are really just 2 rooms, and on the ground floor, you'll enter into the storage hall, such as it is, with a number of containers and potted plants, which leads into the rest of the shack here. You'll find the cooking fire pit is just kind of in the center of everything, with a lovely little lounge over in the corner, complete with cushions and a small table where you can take your meals. In the adjacent corner, you can find a small writer's nook, with a desk for you to use. It's worth noting that this abode does come pre-decorated, but these decorations are actually labeled containers, with essentially limitless capacity, allowing you to easily organize and store your loot. Upstairs, you'll find the master bedroom, such as it is, with cushions that can act as a bed, and just lots and lots of cozy detailing to make you feel at home. and access to the outdoor balcony. At a modest price of 1500 gold, this player home is maybe just a bit out of reach for adventurers just arriving on Vvardenfell. But it gives them a nice starter home to save up for. And certainly it has just plenty of storage, and a lot of atmospheric charm. An ideal residence for those who just want to fully immerse themselves in the human swamps of the Bitter Coast. Moving a bit south and east to Seyda Neen, right next to both Tarhiel's Tower and Draggle-Tail Shack, we have our next player home, Smugglers Run Player Home by Naufragois77. Another two-story shack, Smugglers Run comes with a small dock, an outdoor campfire, and a group of extremely hostile bandits defending their lair. Before you can even think about claiming this player home as your own, you'll first have to dispose of the previous owners, who will put up just a bit of a fight. But to be clear, these are fairly low-level bandits, so most starting players should be able to take them on. If not just immediately after arriving on Vvardenfell, at least a couple of levels later. Your reward for clearing out this encampment is Smugglers Run, a modestly scenic new shack abode that, going inside, has plenty of space for any would-be starting adventurer, including a number of rooms, such as a painting lab, a workshop, a dining room, a study and library, a master bedroom, and a few hammocks for guests. Going inside though, you'll find that these bandits haven't exactly left the shack in the best of conditions. All sorts of detritus clutters the ground, the tables, just really every surface. Almost as if it wasn't Dunmer that lived here, but Nords! Filthy, dirty Nords! Now that is not an impolite thing to say. Even Nords know how unhygienic they are. I mean, look at them! They don't even wear clothes half the time! So imagine one's surprise that this shack was previously occupied by vastly superior Dunmeri folk, and not Nords, but Dunmer! I can't believe it. I mean, this looks like a place where Nords lived. Stupid, dirty, sexy Nords. But anyway, dirtiness aside, the ground floor is composed of a small foyer that enters into a large room, containing the dining room, the workshop, the painting corner, a spare hammock, a bit of storage, and evidently the previous owners also washed and hanged their clothing to dry in here. Going upstairs, you'll find a very messy little study and library, covered in bottles and other odd bits of trash. Though there is some decent display space here, if you manage to clear it off. And this also leads into the master bedroom, which contains a simple hammock and a table for one to take a few private meals. This home is very much a fixer-upper, and you'll want a mod like a perfect placement to just help clear up all this detritus. While it is quite messy to start out with, after a bit of work, this could turn out to be a pretty handy base of operations, just for the fledgling adventurer. It has a short commute back to Seyda Neen and a number of containers, with basic storage capacity. And while it will take just a bit of fighting to claim it, the end result here is well worth it for those seeking just a more immersive player home. Now, I know we featured quite a few player homes outside of Seyda Neen, so let's move a little closer to town. But not by much, for our next player home is Cozy Home by that Dwemer guy. Located next to Tarhiel's Tower, along the road overlooking the Bay of Seyda Neen, a Cozy Home is a tiny, one-story Nordic-style cottage, with a little covered outdoor dining area that would, normally, provide some pretty scenic views of Seyda Neen. But if you have Grot Morrowind swamp trees installed, that view is largely obscured and provides only a lovely vista of tree bark. The two mods are compatible though, it just might look a tad odd. Now, this is a free player home, readily available for you to occupy. And while very small, it comes with a bedroom, a dining room, a storage nook, and a kitchen. Naturally, this is basically just a one-room abode, so all that is just stuffed into the ground, and indeed only floor. But as the name suggests, it is a cozy abode, pre-detailed and furnished, providing you with a comfortable living space to call your own, just as soon as you get off the boat. There's a hearth to cook your meals, a table for preparing dinner, a dining room table with chairs for two, and a bunk bed where you, and perhaps a companion, can rest after a day out adventuring. There's a handful of containers for you to store your loot, though, notably, they aren't empty, and there's perhaps just a tad overpowering amount of loot pre-stored in these containers. But they can otherwise, hold about 200 pounds each. It is a charming, cozy, and rustic abode to call your own. And while it is certainly quite small, if you just need a starter home with a scenic view, this one could be a nice residence to check out. Finally, for our last home on today's tour, we're at long last moving from the outskirts to the center of Seyda Neen, with the Seyda Neen Tradehouse basement by Tizzo. The smallest player home in today's lineup, you can rent this property from Ariel for a mere 2,000 gold. And as the name suggests, this is a basement apartment, with a newly refurbished Tradehouse basement that you can now access. While there's not a whole lot to see on the outside, the interior provides a bedroom, a study, and a kitchen. Though, unlike with Cozy Home, this is actually all just one room, and this really isn't the largest apartment around. Heading through the door, you'll find the kitchen, with a roaring fireplace just to your left, with the bedroom, such as it is, with a single bed for you to use in the adjoining corner. Finally, just straight ahead from the door is a small study, with a desk, a couple of shelves, and a handful of containers for you to use. Now, while this may be the smallest player home in today's lineup, it has a number of features, including an ingredient sorter, which you can use to automatically store all your ingredients. And when it comes time to make potions, you can use these scrolls here to the side to filter ingredients by magic effect, adding the selected ingredients just right back into your inventory. There's also a scripted chest that you can lock and relock to practice your lockpicking skills, a teleport amulet to take you back to your apartment at any time, a scroll and potion sorter, and of course a few containers with default storage capacity, capable of holding around 100 pounds each. Like with Draggle-Tail Shack, most off-the-boat adventurers probably can't afford this place right away. But it does give you just something to work for, and the number of advanced features here just makes up for its otherwise small size. But that's the last of our player homes for Seyda Neen. There are certainly just quite a few more that we haven't shown off here, but who knows? Perhaps you found your dream player home. If not, tune in next time for when we head to the Imperial Citadel, with the housing market of Ebonheart. Until then, as always, links are just right down below. And real quick, I would like to just take a moment to thank our patrons, including Ascetic JMac, Elderoth, Alexos, Area 5, /Symbolmean, Billy Fighter, Carter Canterbury, Kiwi, Cyprinius, Danae, Daliant, Danina, Dennis418, Exovian, Yame Alcazo Castornau, Julian, Corridor, Langasteer, Lord Brinny, Macbone, Melchior Dog, Mercury Bard, Merlord, Michael, Mr. the Joshman, Null Cascade, Old Navy Twidget, Opera Jack, or Mr. Bard, Porcuse, Povio Hello, Raven Talon, Arfuso, Rissaleaf, Sand Gentleman, Shadowban Schwein, Shooter, Soga Cat, Stiffkitten, Talvani with 1,000 nicknames, Tezrel, Two-Timing Trauma Root, Tara Rain, Food Tot, and Xero Fox. If you'd like to join them, check out our rewards, including early access, behind-the-scenes content, and access the polls to decide what kind of content we showcase, visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/morrowindmodding. Thanks for watching, and as always, stay safe, stay healthy, happy modding, and I'll see you all next time.